दीप जिसका महलात में ही पले, चंद लोगों की खुशियों को लेकर चले। वो जो साए में हर मसलत के पले, ऐसे दस्तूर को, सुबह बेनूर को मैं नहीं मानता, मैं नहीं जानता। मैं भी खाइफ नहीं तख्ताएदार से, मैं भी मंसूर हूं कह दो अगयार से। क्यों डराते हो जिंदां की दीवार से, जुल्म की बात को, जहल की रात को। मैं नहीं मानता, मैं नहीं जानता। हबीब जालिब दस्तूर।
Hello, everyone. Welcome to RawPods, conversations in creative ideas and expression, hosted by Rawanee. Today's session will focus on the subject of resilience. More specifically, we will be talking about poetry of resilience. We have a number of community members from Rawanee who will be sharing poetry and some prose with us, a lot of which they have written themselves, and some of which are words that others have written that our team has found inspiring and fitting for today's discussion. My name is Muniba Mahmood, and I will be moderating today's session. Just a little bit about why we have chosen this subject today before we move on to the actual conversation. When our team sat down to plan today's session, we thought back to how the last year has been for all of us. Since we're having this session in December, December is traditionally a time when a lot of people sit back and reflect. Yes, it is a month of celebration, but equally, as the new year approaches and as the old year draws to a close, a lot of times we find ourselves sitting down to reflect on how the year has been. And as our team sat down to reflect on, how the year has been for so many people around us, we were struck by one common element of resilience that we've seen in many people around us as they fight battles, silent battles, but real ones requiring a lot of courage. And we thought that whilst there is always cause for bigger celebration, why not dedicate today's session to the courage and resilience of people who are fighting silent battles? And, why not celebrate resilience itself? I hope that you will find this session to be inspiring. And I will now hand over to Rafe, who will be reading a poem to us, and I'll ask him to introduce himself and also tell us a little bit about what he will be reading. So over to you, Rafe.
राइट सो अस्सलाम वालेकुम एवरीवन, मेरा नाम राफे ज़ुबैरी है। मैं पहली दफ़ा आपका ये सेशन अटेंड कर रहा हूँ। मैंने आप लोगों के ज्वाइन करने से पहले काफ़ी डिटेल में अपनी इंट्रोडक्शन दे दी थी। अब मैं जल्दी से वो रिपीट कर देता हूँ। मेरा सारा जो करियर है, IBA एलुमनाई क्लास ऑफ 96। मेरा सारा करियर जो है वो सेल्स और मार्केटिंग के अंदर रहा है। नाउ आई हैड मार्केटिंग फंक्शन ऑफ अ लार्ज बिस्किट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इन कराची। I've been posted in different parts of the world. Last trip was in Riyadh. 3 years ago, I came back to Pakistan, and now I am working with a biscuit company, heading their marketing department. उर्दू का शौक़ मुझे मेरा ख़्याल है कि बहुत ही यंग एज से है, और हमारे ख़ानदान में और मेरे घर में उर्दू का बहुत चर्चा है और बहुत सेलिब्रेशन है। मुख्तलिफ़ तरीक़ों से पढ़ी जाती है। बैतबाज़ी के कॉम्पिटिशन हमारे यहाँ घर में बाकायदगी के साथ होते हैं, और हर अच्छी जो है वो नशिस्त को हम सब कोशिश करते हैं कि अटेंड कर लें। आज जो है मैंने जो नज़्म पढ़ने के बारे में सोचा था, वो मुस्तफ़ा ज़ैदी साहब की एक बहुत मशहूर नज़्म है, और मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा पसंद है क्योंकि आज का टॉपिक रेजिस्टेंस के ऊपर था, इसलिए मैंने मुस्तफ़ा ज़ैदी की नज़्म निकाली है। वैसे तो मुस्तफ़ा ज़ैदी की एक से एक अच्छी नज़्म है। इनफैक्ट नज़्म के शोरा में मुस्तफ़ा ज़ैदी शायद सबसे आगे हैं। जो उनका स्टाइल है लिखने का, और जो उनका तख़ल्लुस भी तैग़ इलाहाबादी था, तो उनकी एक्चुअली नज़्म में वो तैग़ वाली चीज़ भी नज़र आती है। इतनी उसमें काट है, इफ आई मे से सो। और साथ में वो ब्यूरोक्रेसी का हिस्सा थे। उन्होंने पाकिस्तान की एस्टैब्लिशमेंट को बहुत गौर से देखा था, और साथ में उनकी एक पूरी एक अल्टरनेटिव लव लाइफ़ भी थी, जिसके साथ उनका जो मिक्सचर ऑफ पोएट्री है, वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा यूनिक है। हाउएवर ये वाली जो इनकी नज़्म है, बनामे वतन, जो एक तवील नज़्म है, ये बेसिकली जो है वो उसकी रेजिस्टेंस के ऊपर اور ریولوشنری اس کے اندر ہے، جس میں وہ کچھ لوگوں کو تم کہہ کے مخاطب کر رہے ہیں. اور میں نے کافی ریسرچ کی کہ یہاں پہ مصطفیٰ زیدی تم کس کو کہہ رہے ہیں. اینڈ آئی ریئلائز کہ وہ تم جو ہیں وہ پاکستان کی جنرل اسٹیبلشمنٹ، پیپل ان پاور، and I think people who are pessimistic in general in Pakistan but also are in power، ان کو مخاطب کر کے تم کہہ رہے ہیں، اور ان کو ایڈریس کر کے مصطفیٰ زیدی نے یہ نظم لکھی ہے. اوبویسلی پوری نظم میں پڑھوں گا تو پورا سیشن میں وہ نظم ہی رہ جائے گی، تو میں صرف اس کے سلیکٹڈ جو بند ہیں وہ پڑھتا ہوں تاکہ ہمیں اندازہ ہو کہ مصطفیٰ زیدی نے اس پوری چیز کو 70s اور ارلی 80s میں آئی تھنک کس طریقے سے دیکھا ہے. تو اس کا نام ہے بنام وطن. ٹھیک ہے، اگر آپ کی اجازت ہو آئی کین اسٹارٹ اٹ ناؤ. ٹھیک ہے، سو دس از آئی ول بی ریڈنگ اٹ فرام ہز بک. اوکے، بنام وطن. کون ہے آج طلبگار، کون ہے آج طلبگار نیاز و تکریم؟ وہی ہر عہد کا جبروت، وہی کل کے لئیم، وہی ایار گھرانے، وہی فرزانہ حکیم، وہی تم لائق صد تذکرہ اور صد تقویم. تم وہی دشمن احیائے وفا، تم وہی دشمن احیائے صدا ہو کہ نہیں؟ تم پس زندہ، تم ہی جلوہ نما ہو کہ نہیں؟ تم نے ہر عہد میں ہر نسل سے غداری کی، تم نے بازار میں عقلوں کی خریداری کی، اینٹ سے اینٹ بجا دی گئی خودداری کی، خوف کو رکھ لیا خدمت پہ کماداری کی. آج تم مجھ سے میری جن سے گراں مانگتے ہو، آج تم مجھ سے میری جن سے گراں مانگتے ہو، حلف ذہن و وفاداری جہاں مانگتے ہو. جاؤ یہ چیزیں کسی مدح سرا سے مانگو، جاؤ یہ چیزیں کسی مدح سرا سے مانگو، طائفے والوں سے ڈھولک کی صدا سے مانگو، اپنے دربار سے بدتر فقراء سے مانگو، اپنے دربار کے گونگے شعراء سے مانگو. مجھ سے پوچھو گے تو خنجر سے عدو بولے گا، گردنیں کاٹ بھی دو گے تو لہو بولے گا. تم نے ہر دور میں دانش پہ کئی وار کیے، جبر کے منہ میں دہکتے ہوئے الفاظ دیے، اپنی آسائش یک عمر گریزاں کے لیے سب کو تاراج کیا تم نے، مگر تم نہ جیے. علم نے خون رگے جان دیا اور نہ مرا، علم نے زہر کا پیالہ پیا اور نہ مرا. اب یہ جو اس کے بعد سٹینزا ہے ان کا بہت کوٹڈ ہے کیونکہ یہ بہت مشہور ہے. علم سقراط کی آواز ہے عیسیٰ کا لہو، علم گہوارہ و سیارہ و انجام و نمو، علم عباس علمدار کے زخمی بازو، علم بیٹے کی نئی قبر پہ ماں کے آنسو. وادی ابر میں قطروں کو ترس جائے گا، جو ان اشکوں پہ ہنسے گا وہ جھلس جائے گا. بہت ہی یہ زیادہ کوٹ کی جاتی ہے یہ والا. میں 3 4 اور پڑھوں گا then we'll stop it. آج تم رام کے مونس نہ ہنومان کے دوست، آج تم رام کے مونس نہ ہنومان کے دوست، تم نہ کافر کے سناخا نہ مسلمان کے دوست، تم نہ الہات کے حامی ہو نہ ایمان کے دوست، تم نہ اشلوک کے ساتھی ہو نہ قرآن کے دوست. تم تو سکوں کی لپکتی ہوئی جھنکاروں میں اپنی ماؤں کو اٹھا لاتے ہو بازاروں میں. بیسکلی ہی سیئنگ کہ مٹیریلزم ٹیکس دا کیک، پیسوں کے لیے کچھ بھی کر سکتے ہیں. ذہن پر خوف کی بنیاد اٹھانے والوں، ظلم کی فصل کو کھیتوں میں اگانے والوں، گیت کے شہر کو بندوق سے ڈھانے والوں، فکر کی راہ میں بارود بچھانے والوں، کب تک اس شاخ گلستاں کی رگیں ٹوٹیں گی، کب تک اس شاخ گلستاں کی رگیں ٹوٹیں گی، کوپلیں آج نہ پھوٹیں گی تو کل پھوٹیں گی. کس پہ لبیک کہو گے کہ نہ ہوگی باہم، جوہری بم کی صدا اور صدائے گوتم. رزق برتر ہے کہ یہ شعلہ بدامہ ایٹم، گھر کے چولہے سے اترتی ہوئی روٹی کی قسم. زخم اچھا ہے کہ ننھی سی کلی اچھی ہے، خوف اچھا ہے کہ بچوں کی ہنسی اچھی ہے. بوٹ کی نوک سے قبروں کو گرانے والوں، تمغہ مکر سے سینوں کو سجانے والوں، کشتیاں دیکھ کے طوفان اٹھانے والوں، برچیوں والوں، کماں والوں، نشانے والوں. دل کی درگاہ میں پندار اٹھا کے آؤ، اپنی آواز کی پلکوں کو جھکا کے آؤ. Okay, I'll read the last 3 paras. اے وطن یہ تیرا اترا ہوا چہرہ کیوں ہے، غرفہ و بام شبستہ میں اندھیرا کیوں ہے، درد پلکوں سے لہو بن کے چھلکتا کیوں ہے، ایک ایک سانس پہ تنقید کا پہرا کیوں ہے. کس نے ماں باپ کی سی آنکھ اٹھا لی تجھ سے، چھین لی کس نے تیرے کان کی بالی تجھ سے. رود راوی تیرے ممنون کرم کیسے ہیں، صنعتیں کیسی ہیں، تہذیب کے خم کیسے ہیں، اے ہڑپا تیرے مجبور قدم کیسے ہیں، بول ٹیکسلا تیرے صنم کیسے ہیں، ذہن میں کون سے معیار ہیں برنائی کے، مانچسٹر کے لبادے ہیں کہ ہر نائی کے. And this is now the last para which actually summarizes the whole poem. عسکریت ہے بڑی شے کہ محبت کے اصول، عسکریت ہے بڑی شے کہ محبت کے اصول، بو لہب کا گھرانہ ہے کہ درگاہ رسول. عسکریت ہے بڑی شے کہ محبت کے اصول، بو لہب کا یہ گھرانہ ہے کہ درگاہ رسول. تبل و لشکر متبرک ہیں کہ تطہیر بطول، مسجدیں علم کا گھر ہیں کہ مشن کے اسکول. آج جو بیتی ہے کیا کل بھی یہی بیتے گی، بینڈ جیتے گا کہ شاعر کی غزل جیتے گی. So this was Mustafa Zaidi. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorites because he very clearly establishes. یہ بہت منفرد انداز میں یہ اس چیز کو بتا رہے ہیں کہ جس طرف ہم 70s اور 80s میں جا رہے تھے، جو عسکریت پسندی اور جو فنڈامنٹلزم اور ہر چیز میں ایک سختی کا رویہ جس طرف ہم جا رہے تھے، تو وہ آہستہ آہستہ بڑھتے بڑھتے جو ہے اب ہمارے سامنے ویری ہائی ایکسٹریمزم فارم میں آ چکا ہے، جس میں دونوں طرف، ایک طرف جو ہمارے ریلیجس گروپ ہیں وہ بھی اتنے سخت ہو چکے ہوئے ہیں، جو آپ کی ملٹری کے جو فین فالوئنگ ہے وہ بھی بہت سخت ہو چکی ہوئی ہے، اور اب جو ہے وہ یہ جو سافٹر ایشوز کی اسپیس ہے وہ بہت ہی تھوڑی رہ چکی ہوئی ہے. I think this is what he was trying to say in 70s.
It's beautiful and very, very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing it. I think, when you were reading the poetry, obviously the words speak for themselves, very, very powerful. ایک چیز جو میرے مائنڈ میں آئی کہ this you said is a poem of resistance, and I also think it speaks to the resilience of a nation that has gone through so much and continues to go through so much. If you think about how difficult things have been, lekin how strong everybody is in the country, I think it's a beautiful commentary for that as well. Since we've seen a few decades, since we've known things to get much worse in the few decades since he's passed away, Mustafa Zaidi probably saw the beginnings of, how things are at this point. ایک چیز جو بہت مجھے اسٹرائک کی اس میں, when you said something to the effect of خوف اچھا ہے یا بچوں کی ہنسی اچھی ہے, and I think that is such a powerful sentence, کیونکہ if you look at more developed countries that do well, اس میں ایک فنڈامنٹل لیول پہ بچوں پہ فوکس کیا جاتا ہے, and unfortunately I think this speaks to we are asking our children to be more resilient than they should be, than it's fair to them. So I thought that was very powerful.
Yeah, it was. I think جو ان کا last paragraph ہے وہ I think that puts it in very black and white کہ عسکریت ہے بڑی شے کہ محبت کے اصول. It is actually, this is what has happened in the past few years, that the عسکریت چاہے وہ ڈاؤن رائٹ ملٹرزم ہو یا وہ آپ کی جو ہے وہ even your softer groups which have come together and also become more, not I don't want to say militarized, but at least more hard lined. ٹھیک ہے, and I think جو محبت اور جو سافٹر ایشوز تھے ہماری سوسائٹی کے وہ کم سے کم ہوتے جا رہے ہیں مسلسل, ٹھیک ہے نا, اور وہ آگے چل کے بھی اب جس طرف ہم جا رہے ہیں وہ مزید سختی ہے ہر چیز میں. This is what I think.
Yeah, very well said. I think Abid wants to participate.
Hi everybody, good morning, evening, afternoon, جہاں سے بھی آپ لوگ کنیکٹ کر رہے ہیں. I think one thing that I really like about Urdu language, یا اردو لینگویج کے علاوہ بھی جنرلی اردو پوئٹری بیسکلی, اس کی ایک خصوصیت یہی رہی ہے کہ وہ ایک مصرے میں یا ایک شعر میں اتنا کچھ کہہ جاتے ہیں کہ آپ پھر بعد میں اس کی مختلف تشریحات نکالتے رہتے ہیں کہ شاعر نے اس میں ہو سکتا ہے یہ کہا, اور پھر جس ماحول میں آپ ہوتے ہیں, جس سچویشن میں آپ ہوتے ہیں, آپ اس سے کئی چیزیں نکال سکتے ہیں. فار ایگزامپل اگر آپ نادر بیٹھے ہیں تو میں اٹس ناٹ مائی پلیس ٹو ٹاک اباؤٹ غالب ایٹ آل, بٹ اگر آپ کسی کی بھی شاعر جو بڑے شاعر ہیں ان کی اگر آپ نظمیں پڑھیں, غزلیں پڑھیں, تو بہت ساری چیزیں آپ کو ایسا ہی لگتا ہے کہ یار ہمارے بارے میں یہ بات ہو رہی ہے. ابھی جو پیس رافع نے پڑھا, بریلینٹ, بہت ساری چیزیں, اور اردو خاص طور پہ اس کو ایک کریڈٹ جاتا ہے کہ ہمیشہ لینگویج آف ریبیلین اینڈ ریزیلینس رہی ہے ان دا پاسٹ. وہ کہتے ہیں نا, ویپن آف دا لٹریٹ از اردو شاعری. ہاتھ سے اور آواز اونچی کرنے سے تو بہت سے لوگ باتیں کر لیتے ہیں, جانور بھی اپنا پوائنٹ سامنے رکھ سکتا ہے ایسے آواز اونچی کرنے سے, مگر اردو شاعری کو میں خاص طور پہ اردو شاعری اس لیے کہہ رہا ہوں کیونکہ جتنی رچ ووکیبلری ہے نا اردو کی, शायद ही किसी और ज़बान में पाई जाए। अरबी में कह सकते हैं, फ़ारसी में कह सकते हैं, मगर जो भी इस तरफ की, मैं I'm forgetting the word that combines all these three languages. मैं लिख लेता हूँ, मुझे याद आया तो मैं आपको बताऊंगा. So thank you so much, Rafi, for sharing this with us.
जी,
And
बहुत शुक्रिया,
sorry.
थैंक यू.
Thank you very much, Rafi. Before we move on to Shahryar, I believe Shahryar has 2 points to read. One of them might be on a similar, but on a similar theme, but obviously a different subject. I'll just comment that William Blake in the 18th century, और इसकी 2 lines मुझे याद आ रही थी. Priests in black gowns were walking their rounds and binding in briars my joys and desires. So he'd, spoken about a beautiful garden of love where children were playing happily. And then he visited it on another day, और वो बच्चे चले गए थे और फूल उधर से गायब थे. और बस so there was that restrictions and that, that feeling of fear, जो खौफ की बात आपने भी अपनी poem में की थी. So very powerful, and I think the themes connect well through history as well. So thank you very much, Rafi. Shahryar, I'll hand over to you, and you can introduce yourself and talk about the first of poems that you're reading.
Okay, assalamualaikum everyone. It's nice to see Abid, especially. So anyway, just happy to be here. Thank you. I'm going to recite 2 poems. और ये अंग्रेजी में करूँगा unfortunately कुछ लोगों के लिए, लेकिन unfortunately इंग्लिश पे थोड़ा ज़्यादा अबूर है, तो you'll have to bear with me. जब मुझे बताया गया था कि resilience के ऊपर है, तो I spoke to Muniba, and we were initially, the first thing that came to my mind was resilience. I've been writing a lot of political poems, but I thought that would be perhaps too cliched for this occasion, because हम सब को current affairs का अच्छी तरह पता है, और अगर कोई चीज़ वो तो एक यूनिवर्सल चीज़ है और वो पॉलिटिकल चीज़ है, वो रहेगी. तो बट रेजिलियंस के इतनी ज़्यादा स्ट्रीक्स हैं और इतनी ज़्यादा स्ट्रेन्स हैं कि वो हर ऑर्डिनरी लाइफ में भी हम उसको रिलेट कर सकते हैं. तो अभी 2 पोइम्स जो हैं मैं पढ़ूंगा, वो मैंने अभी बल्कि पिछले हफ्ते ही लिखी हैं. बिल्कुल पिछले हफ्ते हैं, तो बिल्कुल कितना वो अभी पकी हैं, तवे से निकली हैं अभी, लेकिन समहाउ सबकॉन्शियसली शायद वो रेजिलियंस ही के ऊपर मैं सोचा था, तो वो निकल आई हैं. तो पहली जो है उसका नाम है स्ट्रीक्स. बालों को जो खवातीन स्ट्रीक करती हैं, तो एक मेरी दोस्त है और वो थोड़ी सी इतनी अच्छी मैरिज में नहीं है, तो मैं उसके साथ बात कर रहा था, तो उसने कहा कि मैं अपने आप को, अपने जहन को बिजी करने के लिए और अपना ध्यान बटाने के लिए मैं जो हूँ अपने बालों को स्ट्रीक करती रहती हूँ और एक्सपेरिमेंट करती रहती हूँ. तो मुझे वो बड़ी चीज़ अच्छी लगी, बिकॉज पोइट को तो सिर्फ एक कैटलिस्टिक एक मोमेंट चाहिए होता है, कैटलिस्ट मोमेंट. तो मैंने कहा यार अच्छा है, कभी कभार एक ऑर्डिनरी चीज़ को भी आप थोड़ा एलिवेट कर सकते हो. तो आई होप यू लाइक इट. मैं अभी शेयर स्क्रीन करता हूँ और पहली पोइम जो है वो आपसे शेयर करता हूँ. आई होप यू लाइक इट. थैंक यू. सम डायलेमा दिस, dying on the outside, dying on the inside. In-laws cringe at the word career, so you start a love affair with great and healthy hair. One can dream even in a nightmare. Streaks will keep you sane. Colors never flow in vain. COVID just dropped a new strain, and I think this poem needs a refrain. Streaks of gold and silver, streets of sand and gravel, stars that shine in darkness, satellites destined to travel. Streaks of gold and silver shimmer like precious metals. Highlights elevate you, update you till the dust settles. Time to trade in subtle for downright dramatic. Flying erratic, baggage dramatic. A streak of insanity runs in his family, a peculiar, most mercurial man, stubborn as a battering ram, laying siege to your castle doors, likes his subjects on all fours. Dance into your future, break this losing streak, can't roll with the punches 7 days of the week. Streaks will keep you sane, one way of putting up with the pain. Streaks of gold and silver scream bold and rebellious. Monochromatic minds cannot feel the strands that connect us. So that was the first one. I hope you could hear it fine.
It was beautiful, actually. Do you want us to, talk about it before you move on to the next one?
Please. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
So that was beautiful. And I love how, firstly, I think I love the diversity of this group. Okay, we've had Rafi reading a more historical and political poem, whereas yours is a lot more personal and very, very current. And as always, you write about a subject. Like, and I remember after last time, the poem that you shared, there were a lot of current affairs and issues in that. And, you talk about the COVID's new strain and all. So that's very delightful. But I thought what was particularly powerful was one can dream even in a nightmare. And I think nothing speaks better about the resilience of the human spirit than the ability to see hope when it's particularly hard to do that.
Yes.
So I thought that was beautiful. And, you had a last, I think one of your last lines, if you can repeat that, it was about, the connectivity and how everybody can't see it. Feel that?
Totally. Yes, I'll just read it out for you. So, streaks of gold and silver scream bold and rebellious. Monochromatic minds cannot feel the strands that connect us.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Yes.
Thank
and
you.
I think that's beautiful. Again, one of the traits of resilience is the ability to connect with other souls. People who are able to develop resilience within themselves, they not only have the ability to reflect, they have the ability to, connect with others. And that kind of fosters the ability to emotionally cope. So thank you. That's brilliant. I look forward to the next one.
Thank you. I tried to use a lot of metaphors because she's in a bit of an abusive relationship, and I don't think that it's very nice to talk about other people's things so openly because it's very personal. But the use of metaphors, whether it's English or Urdu, helps you to disguise your words and still talk about the pain, but it doesn't have to go in a certain litigation mode. But it's, I think that's the power of beauty, is that you can still talk about a lady who's trying to find her escape, and perhaps streaking her hair is the best way to do it. So who am I to judge? I'm just glad I got a good poem out of it, and I thank her for her resilience, because it's not easy.
Sharia, can I also add? Yeah, thank you for sharing this. I could feel the pain of the woman's situation in this. And so when I quit my very first job, I got a haircut and I dyed my hair for the very first time. और मुझे उस वक्त वही लगा था कि हाँ, जो आपकी लाइफ में काफी चीजें out of control हो रही होती हैं, that's the one thing you can control. And I think ये काफी औरतों में बहुत common है. So अगर एकदम से किसी ने कुछ कराया है, hair cut change कराया है, so I think a lot of people can assume कि कुछ life में बहुत dramatic हुआ है, so एक outlet है. So it was very evident in that poem, and I think Bujo, especially kuch parts where you mentioned the man as well, and you were just referring to him in a very subtle way, but it was also evident, and I just felt so much empathy and sympathy as well for this woman. She's going through whatever she is, but the one thing that she can control and she can change in her life, she is doing that. So what she can change in her life, she's doing it. So power to her, and I think you've captured it wonderfully.
Thank you so much.
Exactly. And yeah, at least you guys are here to get out of the situation.
Yeah, you can turn something very trivial into something beautiful, and I think I tried to do that, and I hope I succeeded. The next poem is called Fish Tank, and this is a conversation I had with another friend of mine, and she also happens to be a lady. I think she feels like her husband is clipping her wings. He's a really cool guy, but she has dreams. And in Pakistan, it's not easy to dream, because you can dream, but after a while, people start to clip your wings. And I think she's an athlete, and I think she can do everything. She can break all the records. So she said, Sherry, I want to break the world record for swimming all the oceans. The first lady to break that record. And I said, wow, that is a dream. She said, because she's an amazing swimmer. And so the word fish tank came in my mind, because a fish tank is very limiting. It limits you. So I hope that you appreciate this poem. It's called Fish Tank. And I hope she gets to break this record and swim, because that is the only way that she can be free. Everything else is limiting, unfortunately, in life. So yeah. So this one's called Fish Tank. Fish tank can't contain me. Prison bars can't detain me. Want to tread on dangerously shallow toes, quell controlling minds, bask in the repose, walk on thin ice, pay a savage price, create new memories, summit all 14 peaks. Precious porcelain is easily broken. Damaged survivor, smile, merely a token. Finally running towards something, not away from everything. Roles reversed, no more rules of verse. Breaking free from this cell, shell, hell. Robin in the sky needs nobody's permission to fly. Robin, sing it. Power of imagination, just wing it. Dusty backroads lead to untold mysteries. Soul takes flight. Rivers meet the seas. Tell me it's true that when I look at you, I'm really chasing a feeling, a story that wants to write itself, a gospel worth believing. Can't contain me in a fish tank, used to swim in circles where the heart sank, Mine used to fish for excuses, draw serious blanks. Something inside me came alive, the crash of ocean waves in a raging tempest, a trail waiting to be blazed. So you go ahead, watch Netflix, I'll swim the English Channel, freestyle my game, bring on the jury panel. Sun burning skin, peeling away like onion rings, infinite layers that lie within. Healing, reeling, a force of nature, positively dreaming. Fish tank can't contain me. Prison bars can't detain me. Thank you.
This was beautiful, very, very powerful. And I think even though this is also on, the subject of relationships, it's a very different theme. This one is probably not abusive, but it's very clearly a controlling relationship.
Right.
And can I just say that the choice of topic, how you've made the title of the poem, Fish Tank, it's a very brilliant choice. She's a swimmer. You've given the imagery of containment while swimming. I think that's very powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and very good. I would say the choice of words very vivid. मैं तो लग नहीं रहा था कि मैं poetry सुन रहा हूँ. It's like as if I'm watching poetry, which is tremendous. Thank you so much.
शुक्रिया आपका. Thank you आपका. बहुत बहुत.
Beautiful. And I think I'll also comment on how you move forward, like, how the poem kind of progresses from precious porcelain being easily broken. So, she is delicate, she is vulnerable, but then you go on to say soul takes flight. So there is almost as if, her worldly situation cannot contain her, that cannot hold her down. Jo ek resilience of the soul hai, that's how she's soaring. And I think the strength is so beautifully captured in that.
Great.
Thank you for that, Shahryar. Anybody else have anything to say? Or
I think the use of fish tank as a title was very, very it captures the whole thing. I think it almost gives away what.
Yeah. Okay. I would also like to add that because yes, fish tank definitely denotes limitations, and you can see as to how this woman, although it's not written by her but by Shahryar, but how he has understood her feeling of moving, of trying to get the chance to just break that glass around her, and to go into the open ocean. And that is the form of resilience that she takes. In the earlier one, also streaks, maybe Geeta, to show that I want to go against, or not against just because of going against, but to reflect myself, to tell people or tell the world who I am, because somehow or the other, this world does restrict you. We are in such a vicious circle that we do go around in circles just like these fish do. And it takes a lot of resilience basically to survive that and to move into the bigger ocean. So I suppose both the analogies of streaking and the analogy of moving out of a fish tank and swimming into the wider ocean are amazing, and they show the freedom of the soul, which is actually what resilience is. I believe that's what I get it. Brilliant, amazing.
Wow, yeah, what a great perspective. Resilience से मुझे एक चीज ये भी याद आती है कि it's not just about कोई externally imposed कोई चीज हो आपके ऊपर. It could be any self-limiting ideas जो कि आपको लगता हो कि आपके जहन में चल रही है. And then it's अभी आपने कहा कि जरूरी नहीं है कि वो resist कर रहे हैं या किसी से लड़ रहे हैं, किसी बाहर वाले से कोई बात हो रही है. It could be just in your head, and at times that's when you need the resilience the most.
Yeah, but I think कि जो बाहर से भी आ रहा होता है ना, आपके अंदर से भी रेजिस्टेंस जो आ रहा होता है वो भी बाहर से ही आया होता है. आपका पर्सपेक्टिव आपने डेवलप ही किया होता है थ्रू आउट योर लाइफ के नो यू कांट डू दैट, कांट. और जैसे पहले स्ट्रीकिंग में भी किसी और ने भी आई थिंक कहा था, कमेंट किया था, इवन अ पर्सन व्हेन अ वुमन फॉर एग्जांपल डज समथिंग like if I go and color my hair purple, definitely shows that I'm going through something. I might not have solved it, I might not have control over it, but what I have control over, I want to show the world, look, this is why I am. Rebellion as well as resilience. Rebellion because, well, there is no other way out.
That's a beautiful perspective, yes. And I think resilience over here is created by, circumstances, like you said, externally, wo create kiye ja rahe hote hain. When a person is forced to show resilience, and that's probably the saddest of all situations, because there's natural life circumstances that require resilience, but where people are causing each other to be in situations where they have to have superhuman strength. It's sad, but it's also beautiful to see the strength of the human spirit. कि वो fish tank में contain नहीं हो रही. It's, the soul is intact and the soul cannot be damaged. So thank you very much, Shariar, for that. Rubina, would you like to go next up? You have a poem to recite as well. Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I'm not a poet, not a poetess. So this is prose, and this is something again what I've written myself. Not reading from another poet, although I planned to, again from Amrit Amjad. Then I thought I should write something about myself. So should I go along? This is prose.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
All right. So resilience, of course. Well, if I look at myself, it's quite personal, this particular piece. Story of my life, right? Rebounding. As most of you know, I'm a psychologist. And resilience is one thing which we frankly try to inculcate in our clients also. And resilience is something which I believe I've been lucky to have as a personality trait of the ability to bounce back. So, talking about that, I start my essay or whatever you can call it or piece. I'm going to be 60 in 2023. Time for reflection. When is it not? Having those cliched comments, hearing those cliched comments. Life begins at 40. 50 is the new 40. But now I'll be 60. It's the real deal. More years behind you than in front. Wondering, how did I get here? Where did my childhood go? And over here, I would like to add a point which Shahryar made. I'm sorry if I'm missing the person. About bachon ki hasi, that I think clicked at this point. So fast. Okay, I get here. Where did my childhood go? How did I get here? Where did my childhood go? So fast. Especially the teenage and the 20s, where I was able to laugh fully, lost that somewhere in the 50s. Why am I here? Could I have done something different? Should I have traveled and kept that as my priority? Due to bad saving habits, I lost the chance. But would travel have given me the contentment I craved for? One thing is for certain, we know nothing. At this point, I crave for a small house, settled in nature, where I work for productivity and not for putting bread on the table, where I could die any day and not regret. I have realized this existence inside has nothing to do with outer circumstances, but it's easier to reflect near a river or a beautiful green mountain than in a concrete jungle, where what you hear is the siren of ambulances and police mobiles. It's easier to look inwards in nature.
Beautiful. And I think the beauty of this piece is that I think it's beautiful because, Jochi's, the closer to truth and yourself you are, the more honestly you write down your feelings. I think the more beautiful and relatable they are. And, where you said, where you spoke about, and I'm talking about a small point of it, I'll go, in more detail later, but where you talked about craving productivity and which is not just bread earning. I feel like, personally, I relate to that. And I'm sure a lot of other people do as well. Kyunke, I think that's a good example of creative resilience. कि आपके अंदर जो एक creative spirit होती है, where you want to do something real and something impactful, वो during the course of life, you can't access it that much. You can't realize it as much. But the fact that it's surviving and thriving and you are seeking outlets for creativity, despite, the difficult sounds that you're hearing constantly, when you're constantly hearing sounds that stress you out, you can't be in that same kind of mental peace, so I think it was very, very real and very relatable as well.
Yeah, thank you. And scary also because, but scary in the sense that, again, concept of limited time. Yeah. How long do I have? So when am I going to get there? Or have I already gotten there? These questions that crop up. Because this world puts us in situations, again, which test us and which focus on what we can. Well, of course, those are important also, but which focus on bread and butter rather than inner strength, inner flow. That's my point.
That's true. Yeah. Or वही बात है कि from childhood, how your life just transitions, how life and time just fly, and that lack of control that you have. I think you've expressed that very well. But I see resilience in all of that. क्योंकि, strength lies in doing what you can within your locus of control. Or I think यही एक resilience की trait है कि recognizing what you don't control, being aware of that, and obviously because that's your reality as well. Lekin also knowing कि आपके control में क्या है, and maybe that inner strength, even when you're in that proverbial fish tank, which is an analogy that I like so much. I'm going to be using a lot of it. But your inner strength is derived from, it's the one thing that is in your control. And I think that's beautiful and, very nicely expressed.
But I love the ख्याल, मतलब जो थॉट है ना वो बहुत मैटर करती है. लोग क्या, मैं खुद ही हमेशा जो है वो रदीफ और काफिये की जंग में जो है ना फंसे रहते हैं. शायरी का बेसिक मकसद तो यही है कि आपके जहन में एक अच्छा ख्याल हो, फिर उसको बयान करने का आप कोई ऐसा अनोखा तरीका ढूंढ लें जो लोगों ने पहले ना देखा हो, या अगर देखा भी हो, सुना भी हो, तो आप उसमें कोई एक नया शेड लेके आ जाएं. फॉर एग्जांपल अभी शहरियार ने स्ट्रीक्स की बात की, बहुत सारी कॉनोटेशन होती. मुझे तो वो पाकिस्तान की विनिंग स्ट्रीक याद आ गई यूएई में जो बेचारा अभी खत्म हो गई रिसेंटली. बट ओवरऑल आई लव द आइडिया. वो कहते हैं ना, ग्रोइंग अप इज जस्ट coming to a point where you know what you don't know just to eventually realize that you know nothing. तो ये एक पूरा ओवरऑल जो फिनोमेना है वो बहुत ही कोई अमेजिंग है.
Yes, I think that's a great thought as well, Abid. The difference between what you know and don't know, and the recognition of that kind of awareness, I think is very, very important. Abid, are you reciting something today? Sorry, I'm not sure. Otherwise, we can move on to Nader.
Sure, I can go right now, क्योंकि नादर के बाद कुछ भी पढ़ना जो है ना वो बहुत ही कोई बहुत ही कोई रिस्की काम है. आई एम प्लेइंग सेफ टुडे. अच्छा जी, तो हुआ ये कि बहुत दिनों से कोशिश थी कि कुछ लिखा जाए, मगर मजाल है कि कोई भी ख्याल जो है ना ये इस दिमाग में दाखिल हो जाए, और दाखिल हो भी जाए तो वो बेचारा फ्लो होके कागज पे नहीं आ पाता. तो अब आई एम नॉट श्योर कि ये थीम से रिलेटेड है कि नहीं. मैं इसको या गज़ल या नज़म भी कहना नहीं चाहता. कुछ अशार हैं जो कि इधर उधर टूटे फूटे आपके पेश खिदमत हैं. तो लेट्स सी. अच्छा भाई, तूफान को लगता था ये बहा ले जाएगा हमें. तूफान को लगता था ये बहा ले जाएगा हमें, पर शायद मेरी दुआओं का बादबान अभी बाकी है. पर शायद मेरी दुआओं का बादबान अभी बाकी है. रात को है गुरूर बहुत अपनी स्याह तारीकी पर. रात को है गुरूर बहुत अपनी स्याह तारीकी पर. नहीं जानती ये दुनिया में कुछ रोशन ख्याल अभी बाकी हैं. नहीं जानती ये दुनिया में कुछ रोशन ख्याल अभी बाकी हैं. और मैं तो डूबने निकला था तूने साहिल पे ला छोड़ा है. बता दे ऐ समंदर और कौन सा इम्तिहान अभी बाकी है. और रूठ चला है वो ना वापस आने के लिए. रूठ चला है वो ना वापस आने के लिए. पलट के पूछ ले शायद ये गुमान अभी बाकी है. वो जाता है तो जाए उसको कह दो. यहाँ शायर बहुत गुस्से में लग रहा है. वो जाता है तो जाए उसको कह दो ख्वाबों में ना आया करे. वो जाता है तो जाए उसको कह दो ख्वाबों में ना आया करे. भूल तो चुका हूँ लेकिन उसकी यादों के निशान अभी बाकी हैं. भूल तो चुका हूँ लेकिन उसकी यादों के निशान अभी बाकी हैं. और मुझको लगता था लुट गया हूँ मैं. अब और कोई आखिर क्या पाएगा मुझसे. मुझको लगता था लुट गया हूँ मैं. अब और कोई आखिर क्या पाएगा मुझसे. जो चुरा लेते हैं लोगों की तन्हाइयाँ ऐसे कई मुल्जिमान अभी बाकी हैं. और गिर जाऊं अगर ज़मीं पे तू सजदा समझ लेना उसको. गिर जाऊं अगर ज़मीं पे तू सजदा समझ लेना उसको. सुधर जाना मेरा मुश्किल सही लेकिन इम्कान अभी बाकी है. और ये सब आखिरी शेर जो है वो आप सबकी नज़र है कि शायरी किस बला का नाम है. शायरी किस बला का नाम है मैं ना जाने क्या लिखता हूँ. शायरी किस बला का नाम है मैं ना जाने क्या लिखता हूँ. मुझ जैसों को सुन लेते हैं ऐसे मेहरबान अभिमान. शुक्रिया.
It was very engaging, very well written, and very well recited as well. Very nice.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely blown away. This was absolutely beautiful. I think Nader has said it in better words than I ever could. But yes, it was beautiful, very, very powerful. And I think, I mean, काफी ज़्यादा शेर थे बीच में, where I thought, इससे ज़्यादा like, this is the summit, you have done so well. But then the next share would just, climb higher. So it was absolutely beautiful. And जो आपने शुरू में बात कही थी कि is this related to the subject or not? I think it is, you've रात के अंधेरे में, like, रात को गुरूर है on the darkness, लेकिन उसमें रोशन ख्याली भी है. There is the resilience of the human spirit is very, very alive in your poem. The situation is difficult, लेकिन एक spirit है जो अभी भी जिंदा है. मैं गिर जाऊं अगर तो इसको सजदा समझ लेना. And you see the pain, you see the sense of defeat and loss. जिस हालत में दुआ भी आपके action से होती है, where dua is not necessarily verbalized, but it's just, that humbling experience. Your heart is experiencing something beyond itself. And I think there is no better road to resilience than that. I think, Nadir, you can probably offer praise in better words than I can. So I'll let you do that.
I agree with that point that twice or thrice I felt that this is probably the best verse and this is where you'll end it, but then you went on with something even better. So kudos on that. So I would love to read it in my peacetime again. So if you could kindly share that on the group, that would be nice.
Sure, absolutely.
Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Most welcome.
You guys just are so generous with your words. That's all there is. Thank you so much.
Most welcome.
No, you're all brilliant, and we're really, really grateful to have you here today. All of you, I think, humne jo bhi suna, it's been diverse and different. And I know that Nadir has something, which is also as brilliant as the others. मैं जिसको सुनती हूँ, I'm like, it can't get better, but, it continues to be excellent. So Nadir, over to you.
No pressure, Nadir.
Yeah, very difficult now. Okay, so this one is called Home is Not a Place. So it goes like this. Do I find home in the newspaper passage or the expose on TV proclaiming my abduction, or cease to call it such for the authorities deny it, bluntly, blatantly, on each forum they face? Do I call home the habeas writ that rested, unheard at the district and sessions junction, or cease to give it reference, for they all but refused to hear the plea or proceed with the case? Or should I call home the court of the magistrate, one that I appeared in like a daily function? He too, however, would not decree that willful and involuntary acts can't share the same space. May I then call home the 5 layers I was illicitly kept in before being produced for legal consumption? For surely I've left marks, names and numbers on every single wall that I could discreetly deface. And I almost learned to call home the Bastille that housed me for 2 final weeks of desertion. 5,000 of my mates called that place home. But I left after telling them, home is not a place.
Beautiful. Very, very powerful words again. You've touched on a very sensitive and difficult subject in a very beautiful and powerful way, which is obviously not easy to do at all. And I think how it's brilliant how you weave the word home into, such a sense of disruption and fear, because, there's the Bastille, there's 5 layers, there's 5,000 mates, which is, very, it's an oxymoron sort of, right? Because obviously 5,000 people cannot be mates. And it's clearly, this person being in a situation where he's trying to find a sense of home and then, he ultimately gives up on it. It's beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit more about the inspiration for writing this?
It's actually a personal account. It's about an experience I had. So it's different stages of that, from the abduction and all of that. So having been through all of that, so it just touches upon all the different stages where you're trying to identify, you're trying to find relevance with what's happening, trying to stay sane. So through all those phases, you're trying to see, and eventually, that the thing that you are, that's keeping you sane is that eventually you'll be going back home. So leading up from the first point, you're wondering whether this is home or this is what my identity is or this is who I am now. So leading up eventually to finding your way back home after a while, after a few months. But yeah, so that's the inspiration actually.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think, like you said, it's a personal experience, and that what brings the honesty and the raw beauty into the poem. You see those experiences, and then you see that resilience comes from clinging on to a sense of home, however difficult it might be to, actually realize that hope. but that's a theme that's constantly there. That thought is constantly on your mind throughout the poem. And, that's what gives you strength in a very, very difficult situation.
Yeah.
मैंने शुरू में जब राफे ने रेसिटेशन की थी तो उसके बाद उर्दू शायरी के बारे में कुछ कहा था. उसके बाद शहरियार और नादिर जो है ना वो बहुत सीरियस हो गए. अच्छा भाई अभी बताते हैं आपको. This is not poetry. This is wizardry.
I had already shared this piece. But जैसे आपने कहा था ना आबिद के does not have to really follow a very strong rhyme sequence. It just has to communicate the message. So this one was not a very strictly rhyming one. It had a loose rhyming scheme, somewhat adhering to it, but not fully dependent on that. So that's not where the wow came from. Yeah, it was more so of a heartfelt piece. So it was true reflection of what I felt or what I experienced. So I did not want it to be clogged down by strict adherence to a theme.
I'm glad. And लोग कहते हैं ना कि वो अच्छा शायर और अच्छा सियासतदान बनने के लिए confinement बहुत जरूरी है. So maybe you never know. It added to this whole poetry journey.
Fingers crossed.
I think the poetic license that you've taken, not restricting yourself to the meter. Sorry, Sharia, please go ahead. Okay.
Sorry, I was saying something that I think a good thought really doesn't require particular language की boundaries. आप किसी भी language में उसको express कर सकते हैं. I think the way you have put it was really beautiful. Maybe उर्दू में शायद इतनी अच्छी ना ही लगती.
मैं ये कह रहा था कि स्टोरी और स्ट्रक्चर का हमेशा एक होता है कि आप कभी कभार एक चीज को कॉम्प्रोमाइज करते हो दूसरे के लिए, बट एट द हार्ट ऑफ एवरीथिंग इज अ स्टोरी. आई मीन इट्स अ गुड फिल्म, इट्स अ गुड पोएम, कोई अच्छी आपकी याद भी होगी तो उसके अंदर कोई पीछे एक स्टोरी है. इट्स ऑल अबाउट स्टोरी टेलिंग. तो समटाइम्स हम स्ट्रक्चर के साथ या टू बी फेथफुल टू अ सर्टेन राइम स्कीम we end up surrendering the essence of the story that we're setting out to tell in the first place. What you've been able to do in this poem, mashallah, very beautifully, is break the rules and not conform to basic rhyme scheme or other rules. And in that process, you've been honest and raw, and I think people love that. The raw can also be misconstrued across the border, but it's not going to be in this session. That there were also visions of Guantanamo Bay and things that conjure. It's like when you tell a story, we all, हमारे अंदर अपना trailer चल रहा होता है film का, but definitely the story of the abduction is very strong and vivid, and I think you've been able to do a great job. So more power to you for being able to face your demons and express it.
Thank you.
So honestly, so thank you for that, because I know it couldn't have been easy for you.
Yeah. So a friend asked me actually how you could actually put it across like this and then leave it out there for public consumption. And I was like, I mean, if it's there, it has happened, so be it. I mean, it's okay. Maybe someone can draw an inspiration from that there is life beyond all those experiences as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think that's very well said. There's life beyond all of those experiences. And I think to Sharia's point as well, how you tell your story, I think it's the authenticity of it. And then you have the poetic license to sort of narrate it in your own words and, how you think it's most powerful and how you connect with it. And when you have that connection with your own work and with your own words, that's when people start relating to it. When you draw your own connections, you have your own experiences and, poetry is a little bit metaphorical. So, when I read this poem, because, you shared it with me earlier, I didn't realize at all that this is your own experience. I thought, you've read somebody's story and that has inspired you to write it. But I think, we interpret it with our own personal biases and, what we know and how we think. And that's probably the beauty of it all. Before we end, I am going to read a few verses. Obviously, I do not have the eloquence that any of you have. But these are by Longfellow, one of my favorite poets. Again, English, apologies, Abid. We're really going against what you said earlier. But these are verses that I dedicate to all of you. Because aapki kahaniyan sunte hue, I feel like the kind of resilience and the kind of strength that you have expressed, and also, it's very inspiring to everybody who's been here. Like, it's been inspiring to me, I'm sure. Others can relate. So I'm just going to read, a couple of verses from it. And the background to this poem is that, just to get the imagery right, Longfellow, the poet he's resting, it's the end of the day and he's reflecting on the day and he has these painful, these sad feelings that are overwhelming and he doesn't know how to cope with them. And he thinks about needing poetry to deal with that. So I'll begin reading. Read from some humbler poet whose songs gushed from his heart, as showers from the clouds of summer, or tears from the eyelids start, who, through long days of labor, and nights devoid of ease, still heard in his soul the music of wonderful melodies. Such songs have power to quiet the restless pulse of care and come like the benediction that follows after prayer. Then read from the treasured volume the poem of thy choice, and lend to the rhyme of the poet the beauty of thy voice. And the night shall be filled with music, and the cares that infest the day shall fold their tents like the Arabs, and as silently steal away. And on that note, I'm, going to say that listening to you all has been like, putting together everybody's cares and thoughts and worries in a bag, the different types of situations that, we've had discussed in this. We had, Rafi talking about the difficulty that an entire nation is facing. We had Nader talking about a very personal experience, and Abid and Rubina as well, and Sharia talking about the experiences of friends that are, equally difficult in very, very different ways. And I think it feels like with poetry is a tool for understanding human emotions, how it's a tool for connection, and it's how we develop more resilience and learn to cope better. Sharia, your poems have come through right now, so thank you very much. It would be lovely to read them. I'll share them with the wider group as well, if you're okay with it. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. Anybody has some final words?
So
I would just like, sorry, go ahead.
I am so sorry about it, but I actually did not realize that everyone will be reading their own poetry. And I read somebody else's poetry. So if you allow me, I could read a few lines just to complete the sequence. This is about, I wrote it a few months ago. It's about Karachi. It's the city that I live in, and it's a city that I relate at a very personal level. So I will just read a few lines just to, complete the sequence that everybody read their own poetry. Okay, so iska naam hai Orphan City. Okay. I always try to keep the names of my Urdu poetry in English for some reason. I don't know why. So it's Orphan City. Okay. गो करोड़ों लोग रह रहे हैं, मेरा शहर यतीम है. गो करोड़ों लोग रह रहे हैं, मेरा शहर यतीम है. ये क्या अजाब हम सह रहे हैं, मेरा शहर यतीम है. वो जो ज़हीन लोग थे उन्हें खा गए कुछ कुन जहन. वो जो ज़हीन लोग थे उन्हें खा गए कुछ कुन जहन. अब गिरे पड़े बस कह रहे हैं, मेरा शहर यतीम है. बड़ी नशिस्त छोटे लोग, बड़ी नशिस्त छोटे लोग, उस पे तुर्रा हम मसीहा. बड़ी नशिस्त छोटे लोग, उस पे तुर्रा हम मसीहा. ये किस गलाजत में हम बह रहे हैं, मेरा शहर यतीम है. किसी का माले गनीमत है हम, या किसी साईं की जागीर. किसी का माले गनीमत है हम, या साईं की जागीर. मेरा घर और ख्वाब ढह रहे हैं, मेरा शहर यतीम है. मेरे घर और ख्वाब ढह रहे हैं, मेरा शहर यतीम है. माले यतीम लुट गया, गिरोहे गनीम में बट गया. हम फिर भी यहाँ रह रहे हैं, मेरा शहर यतीम है. That's it. Thank you.
Wow, जबरदस्त. So Urdu to English to score is level now, guys. So please अगली बार जो है ना तैयारी करके आएगा आप लोग. Thank you, Rafi. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rafi. Beautiful. Very, very nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's painful at the same time. I don't want to get into the reality of things because escape is why we are here. But amazingly written.
I would also like to just add in this कि मेरा शहर यतीम है is the only thing that describes Karachi. बिल्कुल जब आप रहते हैं यहाँ पे तो आपको अंदाजा होता है कि आप कितने अकेले हैं और आपका कोई भी पुरसाने हाल नहीं है. सब कह रहे हैं कराची के ये दो फलां दो और ये है और ये तो कुछ नहीं रहा. शायद ऐसे टू बी ऑनेस्ट सारा मुल्क ही यतीम है. आप सारा जो टॉप से लेके बॉटम तक देखें तो कहाँ जा रहे हैं. वही जो बात है जो मुस्तफा ज़ैदी की नज़म में पहले उन्होंने बताई कहा पढ़ी थी वो, तो हम अभी भी तो उसी 1960s और 70s रिपीट ही कर रहे हैं अपने आप. तो दिस फीलिंग ऑफ बीइंग एन ऑर्फन और बीइंग नॉट केयर्ड फॉर is what causes us are we going to be somewhere, and of course then later to our next generation.
Bilkul. We're a nation that's called on to be more resilient than it should be, and it's our own people who are forcing each other to be that resilient. And it's unfortunate. I think Rafe had also spoken about bachon ki hasi, how we're losing that. So, there's never any support given. It's more of, everybody's expected to cope with difficult circumstances. And Karachi is probably a smaller sample of, the rest of Pakistan. And what we've seen happen over there is, unfortunately happening in the wider country as well.
Yeah, or as a poet, as a शायर, आप एक dilemma में होते हैं हमेशा, because creative लोग जितने भी होते हैं वो ज़्यादा sensitive होते हैं, और कुछ लोगों का ख्याल ये होता है कि शायर को जो है वो ख्वाब दिखाना चाहिए. पोएट जो होता है वो इज अ इंस्ट्रूमेंट ऑफ होप. पोएट्री इज इंस्ट्रूमेंट ऑफ होप. मगर हम उसी डिलेमा में हैं जो कि अनफॉर्चुनेटली एक एज में हमारा जो टीवी कंटेंट था वो था, क्योंकि जब उनको बोला जाता, बिकॉज आई बिलोंग फ्रॉम कराची टू कमिंग फ्रॉम मीडिया साइड, मगर होता है उसमें भी यही होता था कि ये डिबेट चलता रहता था, हम वो दिखाएं कि जो सोसाइटी में हो रहा है या हम वो दिखाएं जो सोसाइटी को होना चाहिए. शायर को भी कभी कभी जो है इसके दरमियानी रहना पड़ता है कि वो लिखे, वो बातें करे जो वो महसूस कर रहा है, जो वो सह रहा है, या वो बातें लिखे जो एट द एंड ऑफ द डे वो चाहता है कि वो ऐसा महसूस करे, या वो पॉजिटिविटी हो या कुछ. तो आई थिंक ये इट वाज अ गुड बैलेंस जो कि शायरों ने रखा हुआ है. मैं कोई सियासतदान आदमी तो नहीं, हम लोग में से कोई भी, आई होप कोई पॉलिटिशियन तो नहीं है, बट नॉट येट एटलीस्ट. तो मगर वी हैव टू डू आवर पार्ट, क्योंकि एट द एंड ऑफ द डे कुछ भी हो जाए, ये जो सिलसिला है रेजिलियंस का, ये जो सिलसिला है उम्मीद का, रोशनी का, रोशन ख्याली का, ये जो है जारी रहना.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Abid, for those beautiful thoughts. And thank you, everyone, Shariar, Nadir, Rafe, Rubina, and Abid, for sharing such beautiful words. And to Sabah for, being awake at this time of the night, even though tomorrow is a working day and a school day for her children. So thank you, everyone. It's been absolutely lovely. Very, very inspiring listening to all of you. Thank you once again.